Welcome to Humboldt City Cemetery. I knew I heard a train. That's on the other side of the track. Welcome to Humboldt City Cemetery. Evidently we caught the 1300 BN coming through. That's nice. We just left Lynchburg Cemetery, and this is more in line with the municipal cemetery, thus Humboldt City. Boy, I sure like that train. I got 5 generations of my family working for the BN. That's wonderful. Anyhow, I said my second great paternal grandparents are here, and a whole lot of peripheral cousins. This stone is very peripheral. I forget his name. Yes. George and Harriet Clift. Their son married Daisy Mann. She was a sister to my great-grandfather Charlie Mann. And they were married. They were both born and reared right here in Humboldt. He got a job with the railroad, which took him to Casper, Wyoming, and then Northern California. But at any rate, they're not my relatives, but they're connected to my relatives. So this is Humboldt City Cemetery. See if I can't get you a little bit of view. I sure like that train. And again, this tripod is on a hill. And that's letting him know he's coming through town. Like that sound. It reminds me of my cousin Gary. Where's my boy? There he is. That's Mr. Isaac David Mann. Hey. He's related to half the people in this boneyard. I don't know why he's so shy. He's good looking. If you recall, when we were at Lynchburg, I told you my second great-grandmother was named Lena Grinstead Allen. This would have been her aunt and uncle and several of her cousins. There's another Grinstead stone down there. The amount of intermarriages and interfamilial connections in this small town, I imagine, is indicative of any other small town. But if you're related to one or two of these people, you're most likely related to most of them. My boy is hot. He's wondering why he came on this trip. And this is more of the city cemetery. I've walked this cemetery several times. It's medium size, I guess. It's none too large, but it's not small like Lynchburg's. I like it that it's on a hill. The mighty Kia. Look, he's bald. I'm still in Humboldt City Cemetery. This is the gravestone of my paternal great-great-grandfather, Robert Mitchell Mann. His ancestor, Experience Mitchell, came to the Massachusetts colony in spring of 1623. And through him, I have applied for membership in the Mayflower Families group and some other organizations. I've applied so many different societies I can't rightly remember their names. I try to forgive this guy for being a Union veteran of the War of Northern Aggression because he's one of mine and because he had such a tragic upbringing. He was born in 1843 in Hamilton County, Ohio. His parents moved they moved to Darke County, Ohio, which is right on the Indiana border, and then they went across to Spartanburg, Indiana. Spartanburg, Indiana, and I forget the little town. I think it's Greenville. Yeah, Greenville, Ohio. Like right across the line from one another. And this family bounced back and forth, but he spent a lot of his time in Indiana. Like I said, he was born in 1843. I've got the marriage certificate of his parents, Morgan Allen Mann and Anna Maria Pettit. They were married in Hamilton County, Ohio in 1838. By 1850, his mother had died from tuberculosis. He was just 6-7 years old. His father was alone with 5 children. Robert, or Mitchell, as he was known then on the census, was a middle child. So he lost his mother when he was just 6 or 7 years old. Then in 1859, just 2 years before the War of Northern Aggression broke out, his father died. And I don't know what his father died from, but he was born in 1816 and he died in 1859, so he's just 43. Isn't that right? Yeah. I don't know what he died of. But Robert Mitchell was an orphan, pretty much. He went to live with his Aunt Martha, but she already had 9 children of her own. They were Quakers. Most of these folks were Quakers in Randolph County, Indiana. But when the War of Northern Aggression broke out, he didn't have any place else to go. So he joined the 57th Indiana Volunteer Infantry. And he was little, like me. I've got a picture of him, an original tintype that I own. The rifle was taller than he was. But he joined the infantry. And he served with the 57th Indiana until January of 1863. He was not wounded, but he caught pneumonia at the Battle of Stones River in Tennessee. I think the rebels call it the Battle of Murfreesboro. Anyhow, they discharged him. And he didn't want to be discharged because he still didn't have any place else to go. In 1863, he was just 20. He didn't have anywhere to go. So after the 57th Indiana Infantry discharged him, he turned around and joined the Ohio Company E 2nd Heavy Artillery Unit as, I can only imagine, a cannon loader, because he was really small. He's smaller than me. Not only was he shorter, he was smaller. So I can only imagine he was loading cannon. Sorry. Long night. He served with the 2nd Ohio till the end of the war. The war ended in April of '65. In June of '65, he decided he was done. So he just was going to walk home. The war was over for him. He was going back to Indiana. Well, the army wasn't finished with him because his enlistment wasn't finished, so he was imprisoned and charged with desertion. Imagine this. He served 4 years, one of the most bloody wars in this nation's history. He served with an infantry unit, then he served with a cannon unit, He served from the beginning of the war because he enlisted in October of 1861, and he served until June of 1865, and they charged him with desertion because he just put down his rifle and wanted to walk home. So they put him in prison. He was in prison in Nashville, in the Union prison, June, July, August of 1865. And he escaped and went home. He just walked home. He met a woman, Lucinda Connor, his wife who lays here with him now. They married in September of, I believe, 1871, and they came to Nebraska in 75 or 76. I can't quit yawning, I'm too sorry. And when he applied for pension in 1890, they denied it. The 57th Indiana approved his pension, but the 2nd Ohio said he was a deserter and that it had never been adjudicated. So they weren't going to give him a pension. So he had to hire a lawyer, and for 15 years he fought the government. And finally in 1910, he was adjudicated, exonerated, and he got a pension. Tragic story. He moved all over. They had 5 children, Robert and Lucinda. One of their middle children was Charles. He was my great-grandfather, Charles Mann. He married Helen Grinstead Allen. But he had other children too, and he couldn't make it as a farmer. He went to a little town in Missouri. I can't think of the name now. I think it's Butler. Missouri. And that's where his daughter married somebody, gave birth to a daughter, and then she died. Because on the 1900 census, they're back here in Humboldt. His granddaughter and his son-in-law are living with him, but his daughter's deceased. He also went to Haddam, Kansas for a number of years. His wife, Lucinda, had asthma. And their daughter, Daisy, married a man named William Clift. And they got transferred through his job with the railroad to Casper, Wyoming. Well, in 1923, Lucinda went to Casper because she couldn't breathe. She was having asthma attacks left and right, and they thought the high desert would help her. Oh, she died there. I find that interesting for a number of reasons. I've got asthma bad. I got it from my father, who got it from his father. That's all I knew. Now I can surmise that my grandfather got it from his father, who got it from his mother, Lucinda. So I can trace my asthma back to 1854, generation by generation by generation, to Lucinda Connor. So through him, I will soon be a member of the Mayflower families. I'm also filing. It's like a Sons of the Pilgrims. I can't join Sons of the American Revolution under him because his ancestors are Quakers, but I already have been recognized as a Sons of the American Revolution under her great-grandfather, Lewis Connor. And Lewis is a common name throughout these Manns, from Lucinda on down. Her father was Lewis Connor III, her grandfather was Lewis Connor II, her great-grandfather was Lewis Connor. Maybe it's her great-grandfather that was the Revolutionary War veteran. They were out of South Carolina, and then they went to Indiana and became Quakers. So that's all my boring story about Robert Mitchell Mann. Like I've told you in other videos, his son Charlie married my great-grandmother Helen. They moved to Lincoln in 1925. 1941 went to Long Beach. And in 1960, they went to a little town north of LA called Lancaster, where he died shortly after. And he's buried in Westminster Cemetery, Long Beach. Robert's son, my great-grandfather, Charlie and Helen, are both buried in Westminster. I've been there. Sounds like another train. Rock and roll. You want to say nothing, Isaac? Come on. Come here. Come here. I want you to see this boy, because maybe you'll be looking at his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren later, and say, what the hell did that kid look like? He's a good-looking kid, ain't he? I love this boy. You got anything you want to say? It's where you get your name. Man, not Isaac.
I know.
Although Robert's grandfather was named Isaac Mann. And his great-grandfather was Isaac Mann. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
And you are?
Isaac Mann.
You what?
Isaac Mann.
Yes, you are.
I forgive him.
We're partial to the rebels. Hey, Richard Mann, Humboldt Cemetery. Yeah, step closer if you would, please. This is a sad, sad tale. Well, you don't have to. You got to get her in. This is Marjorie. This little girl died in a house fire. She was a young person. I think she was 20, but she was special. She was mentally challenged. When I was a child, they called it retarded. Retarded is not a bad word. It just means slow. To retard your spark, but it's rude now. So now they say she was challenged. And her parents left her home, and she accidentally caught the house on fire and burned up in it. Her father was a man named Leonard Mann, and he was a nephew to my great-great-grandfather Robert. And all these people are his. Come on over here, Isaac. All those people. Let's see. You don't have to go so fast, buddy. This is his wife, Frances. That's how his daughter got his name. Frances and Leonard. His name was Leonard Robert, and he got the Robert out of his uncle Robert. Hold it still. Hold it still. And move along here. Howdy. He's still bald. Richard Mann here. As in, man. Here at Humboldt City Cemetery in Humboldt, Richardson County, Nebraska. This is one of my favorite graves. It's a grave of a family that I'm obviously connected to, but the story is really something. My great-great-grandfather, Robert Mann, came here from Randolph County, Indiana, after the war with his wife and his young children, and they had more while they were here in Humboldt. He could never seem to really make it. He moved to Missouri and lost a farm. He went to Kansas and lost a farm. He came back here and was a laborer for a while. He wasn't really a farmer. His brother was named Lewis Cass Mann, was his younger brother. He was named after a politician of the time named Lewis Cass. Anyway, Lewis did the same thing. I have my suspicions that the brothers came together, but I can't prove it. Lewis made it big. He became a cattle dealer. He speculated in land, cattle, the stock market, anything. And he was a wonderful businessman. He became like obscenely wealthy for the area. He died in 1910, and his youngest son, Lewis Harvey Mann, was born in 1891. So Lewis Harvey was just 9 years old, or I guess he was 19 when his father died. Yeah, he was 19. However, when the Great War broke out, he enlisted. And he got sent overseas in the summer of 1917 after going to Kansas for basic training. I've got all the paperwork of the troop transports and everything that he did overseas. And he was killed in battle in the Argonne Push, the push through the Argonne Forest in 1918. He was killed 3 days before the armistice. He was killed 7 November 1918, and the war ended 11 November 1918. His poor mother, his poor widowed mother, had to pay to have his body brought back because they were going to bury him in France, and she didn't want that. His body's here. I don't think the government brought bodies back at that point, but she wanted him here. There's a whole lot of stuff in the newspaper about it. He's buried right here, Lewis Harvey Mann. And the VFW here in Humboldt is named the Harvey Mann VFW because he was the first casualty of Humboldt in the Great War. I think that's how they name their foreign legions. Anyhow, oh my goodness, I'm sorry. It was just a horribly long night. Anyhow, his descendants were really wealthy, and mine were not. When I started doing genealogy in the early 90s, his grandchildren were still here in town. Kenneth and Bonnell Mann. They never married. They're brother and sister. And they lived here. And they were wealthy. They had a really nice house in town, had bars on the windows. This town's only 1,000 people. What are you going to steal? But I asked someone in town once, this was 93, 94. She was almost 100 years old. And I told her my name, and she said, we've got some Manns over there. And I told her who I was related to, and she knew who my great-grandfather was. And she said, they won't talk to you. I said, they won't talk to me. She said, no. She said, I don't know how to put this. She said, when you're like they are, and you're poor, they call you crazy. When you're like they are, and they have money, they're called eccentric. Well, Kenneth and Bonnell are eccentric. Well, me being me, I went over there and knocked on the door anyhow. There was cars in the driveway. Nobody answered the door. So I took down the address, went home, wrote him a long letter, wrote him who I was, wrote him I didn't want anything. I just told him who I was. My ancestor was a brother to their ancestor. I just want to say hello. I didn't want anything. I didn't need money, I didn't need property, I didn't need nothing. I just want to say hello. And they never, ever, ever answered me. I think that's funny. But anyhow, this is the last of the videos of Humboldt City Cemetery. And these are the last of my Manns. I got a bunch of cousins here, but it's hot. My son is starting to wilt. I'll take a short tour around, but again, I'm gonna try and... You don't have to hide, son. I like this up on the hill.
It'd be nice to have a house here.
I don't think they'll let you put a house in the cemetery, son. See, he doesn't appreciate my sense of humor either. It's alright, his mother don't get it neither. Ain't my fault these people don't know what funny is.